Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including the return of the cheapest Model Y, new big Tesla software updates, price increases once again, and more, so let's get into it. First up today, Tesla's newest software version is coming out for all Teslas, and it brings a lot of new stuff. Not a Tesla app has a first look at the features that should be arriving to all owners soon. This is version 2023.12.1, and it's bringing notable new features to the left scroll wheel. You can choose a default function and then scroll through various other options with this wheel, which is new. There's also a search function to search for any features in the menus, and new photos and reviews for restaurants and other locations within maps on screen. One of the coolest undocumented changes for me, though, is the wiper adjustments. When you initiate wipers on the left stalk, you can now click left and right between various speeds with the left scroll wheel instead of needing to tap the screen. Then presumably when this pop-up window disappears, that scroll wheel goes back to whatever you have it set for as default. Tesla's auto wipers are quite terrible and are required with Tesla Vision Autopilot, so I'm very glad to see this change that now allows me to adjust wipers without touching the screen. They have added gear chimes to the Model 3 and Y, and for all cars have changed Spotify to a web player. This reportedly will help them develop faster there and keep Spotify up to date. Speed Assist is now adding in speed limit signs for accuracy of map data. Zoom is available in more countries, and the big one, you can now customize text size. You can choose a large text size, and this is something people have wanted for a long time. I breezed through those features, but they will be adding a lot of stuff for new owners, and I'm very curious to see how the left scroll wheel option works in practice. Another feature Tesla is finally releasing comes through their mobile app, Trip Planning. This is something people have wanted for a long time, since Tesla's in-vehicle trip planner allows you to find the best route, including all of your destinations and supercharging stops, but you've had to do it in the car itself in order to plan your route. This feature is important for people to feel secure with range in their EV on road trips. Tesla is actually quietly adding this to their app while also adding two other features. First, phone key pairing no longer requires your key card to complete, and schedule service for Tesla insurance claims for US customers. The most exciting part for me, though, is trip planning. Here I am routing from my location to Seattle, Washington on my phone. You can see it calculates my route using my car's current charge at 80%, and it gives me all of my charging stops, how long they will take, what my battery percentage will be on arrival at each location, and more. I can then click send to car once I'm satisfied with my route. You can also set battery percentage, and this would allow me to put the charge rate that I plan to leave at the next day or whenever I'm leaving. However, when I put in 100%, it gave me an error, so there do appear to be some bugs here. I also noticed that I can't add multiple destinations, so I'd love to see that updated as well. You can do that in vehicle, but not yet in the app from what I can tell. While Tesla is introducing all of those software and app features, they're also bringing back regenerative braking options. In my opinion, the best way to drive an electric car is to fully embrace one-pedal driving and strong regen braking. It's the easiest way to drive once you get used to it, it's the best for efficiency, and the best for your brake pads long term. Until now, it seemed that Tesla agreed because they removed any regen braking options, but now they're coming back. Tesla is adding back the option to choose between normal and low for regen braking. Tesla says, quote, choose the amount of regenerative braking applied when you release the accelerator pedal. Standard provides the maximum amount of regenerative braking. When you release the accelerator pedal, your vehicle will slow down. Low limits regenerative braking. When you release the accelerator pedal, your vehicle will take longer to slow down and coast farther than if set to standard. The options here are located in pedals and steering. To me, this feels like something Tesla is adding back in because people want it. They can't be as selective with the features they ship because they need to sell cars and eliminate deal breakers for customers. Another example of this is the Model S and X coming exclusively with a yoke steering wheel. Now the yoke is actually the secondary option because it seems most people really do prefer a round wheel, and Tesla was probably losing sales as a result. Speaking of the Model S and X yoke, not only has Tesla added the option of a round wheel, but they have now made the yoke a premium upgrade. When you go to configure a Model S or X on Tesla's website, a round wheel is the default option, contrary to what Elon said a couple years back about it. However, not only is the round wheel the default that says included, but the yoke is now an additional $250. I personally find this pretty funny considering the history of this wheel on the Model S refresh, but apparently Tesla finds a need to charge an extra $250 for the yoke over a round wheel. I'm curious if it's such an unpopular option now that it's actually more expensive for them to source in lower volumes, or if they're trying to make it feel like the premium option that you want to upgrade on your Model S. Maybe charging $250 actually gets people to choose the yoke over a round wheel. Either way, the fact that this is now an option is great. I love the yoke myself, but it was easily a deal breaker for many buyers in this price range. While Tesla made this change, they also increased prices once again. After dropping the Model S and X significantly over the last few months, down to a low starting price of $85,000 and $95,000 respectively, they have now increased each again by $2,500 across all specs. So the Model S now starts at $87,490, with Plaid at $107,490. Then the Model X is $97,490 or $107,490 for the Plaid. However, they have somewhat balanced out the price increases by offering 3 years of free supercharging. For any Model S and X purchased now, Tesla offers this, and it doesn't appear to be a limited time offer or anything. I imagine it could be as they change their pricing or incentives rapidly, but they don't currently mention that you need to get it before it's too late. For some, 3 years of free supercharging could mean significant savings for many road trips over 3 years. I know that if I was a constant long-distance driver driving cars in this price range, this would actually save me a lot of money. However, for the average person, this is likely an offer that Tesla benefits from because it drives a sale, and maybe you use a few $100s of supercharging in the next couple of years and then charge mostly at home for your convenience. We're seeing two things pretty clearly from Tesla right now. For one, they're needing to drop prices in order for demand to keep up with their growing supply. This is exactly what they've been aiming for. However, the Model S and X are expensive and not nearly as popular as the Model 3 and Y. It seems they're having to get creative and offer a variety of demand triggers to get these cars sold in the current market. Next up today, as the Tesla Model Y is growing rapidly in production and deliveries, we're starting to see Tesla finally introduce new configurations. The first one that was new in North America was the standard range all-wheel drive model. This is not a version of this car that Tesla announced 4 years ago when initially unveiling it. At the time, they announced a standard range rear-wheel drive model, rear-wheel drive long range, dual motor all-wheel drive long range, and performance. Worth noting that both the dual motor, all-wheel drive, and performance now sell for less than these originally announced prices. But these have been the only configurations Tesla has sold for a while. Briefly, Tesla sold a standard range rear-wheel drive Model Y, but today that car is only coming out of their factory in China. It has not been available to buy anywhere in North America. So they build standard range cars in Fremont, but it's exclusive to the Model 3. Recently, Tesla officially introduced the standard range all-wheel drive Model Y. And what makes this car special for Tesla is it's actually their first with 4680 battery cells made in-house. It's also $47,000 today and gets a range of 279 miles. So its battery pack is more dense than the standard range Model 3s. It's also utilizing their new structural battery pack, but now in Canada, Tesla has reintroduced the original rear-wheel drive standard range Model Y. So in Canada, Tesla now sells a standard range, long range, and performance Model Y. However, this standard range rear-wheel drive version costs $59,990 Canadian dollars. When converted to USD, that's roughly $44,000, so it falls about $3,000 less than Tesla's all-wheel drive 4680 Model Y in the US. It gets a range of 394 kilometers or 244 miles EPA, so it's noticeably less than their 4680 model. While they introduced it in Canada, they also introduced it in Mexico, so it raises the question as to which factory this is coming out of. Currently, Tesla doesn't make any cars with their standard range 2170 cell pack in Austin, and they haven't made the Model Y in Fremont with a smaller pack, so I imagine these would be coming from China. However, Tesla is all about localization, so maybe Fremont is taking on this new configuration, and that of course raises the question as to whether or not they'd bring this to the United States. The US really values range with electric cars, so their lowest range Model Y being at 279 miles seems like what Tesla and most consumers will want, but this rear-wheel drive standard range option would fit the bill for many and allow Tesla to offer an even less expensive Model Y, even though Elon said it doesn't meet the standard of excellence. He said that, and they've continued selling this car in other markets and are now introducing it in at least 2 new countries that happen to be very close to the US. If they were to bring this to the US, which may prove pretty easy, then they'd have rear-wheel drive standard range somewhere around $43,000, all-wheel drive long range, and then performance. Maybe they could eventually get a single motor standard range Model Y to come in at the originally announced price under $40,000 as well. Interestingly, this comes at the same time that Tesla is introducing the long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3 for businesses in the UK. That car theoretically gets a better range than the dual-motor Model 3 and is a configuration many customers miss. Tesla appears to be playing around quite a bit with configurations as they balance their growing production capacity and sales. Overall, the good news is that this means that their cars are getting cheaper over time, and I'm excited to see it. What do you think though? Will Tesla introduce a rear-wheel drive standard range Model Y in the US on top of their 4680 standard range Model Y? Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts. Next up today, at Tesla's earnings call recently, we got some specific details about the progress of their 4680 cells, which will mean a lot of things for their future vehicles. Back in 2020, Tesla unveiled these 4680 cells at Battery Day. They announced that their goal was to reduce battery costs by over 50% with this new design. They've been working on achieving this since then, but have been running into some issues with their dry electrode coating process. Recently though, they hired a new expert to help out, and it looks like they've been making progress. In that conference call, Drew Baglino, Tesla's senior VP of engineering, explained that on Battery Day 2020, Tesla discussed several aspects involved in ramping these new cells: cell design, materials, the structural pack concept, and the cell factory itself. He said they've, quote, been making progress across all these aspects since then, and that the Texas 4680 factory will be 70% lower capex per gigawatt hour than typical cell factories when fully ramped, in line with what we described on Battery Day. He also added that Tesla is continuing to improve densification and reduce spending for future factory buildouts like in Nevada. Currently, Tesla makes 4680 cells at their pilot plant in Fremont, but eventually Giga Texas will be where most of them are produced. For design, he said they've been working on a second, more manufacturable version at Giga Texas. For materials, he announced the Corpus Christi lithium factory will be breaking ground this May, and their goal is to start commissioning portions of that factory by the end of this year. Most impressively, he said, quote, the refinery uses the sulfate-free refining process with reduced process costs, no acid or caustic reagents, and lower embodied energy. It actually produces a beneficial byproduct that can be repurposed in construction materials. That sounds pretty amazing and shows that Tesla getting into the lithium refining business isn't solely so that they can vertically integrate, but also so they can set new standards for ethical refining. Regarding the timeline for this new building in Austin to start producing cells, their target is to produce first materials before the end of the year. These new cells go hand in hand with Tesla's structural battery pack design, which combines the chassis and battery pack for increased production efficiency as well as increased vehicle efficiency. Currently, the Model Y is the only car built with these features, but Tesla's future vehicles, including the Cybertruck, are expected to as well. In anticipation of that truck ramping, they've been focusing on reducing costs. Quote, altogether, the team accomplished a 25% reduction in cost of goods sold over the quarter, and we are on track to achieve steady-state cost targets over the next 12 months. It's sounding like Tesla is finally making some real progress with this technology, and that's great news for both them and consumers. I'm excited to see which car might get the 4680 cells next. Last up today, some updates from other automakers. It's been well known that Rivian isn't going to be incorporating Apple CarPlay into their software anytime soon, and they went into more detail as to why that is in a recent Q&A session. Their head of software development announced they are working towards integrating some of the features that CarPlay would offer, including improved support for notifications and text messages, and an improved voice assistant. He acknowledged that their current voice assistant, quote, is not the best, and assured that Rivian is working to improve that whole experience first, and then will focus on integrated messaging. He also said they're actively testing an Apple Watch as key feature, and are working on integrating new audio and video streaming services into their infotainment system. He couldn't elaborate beyond that, but that could mean that we'll see apps like Apple Music and Netflix finally added into the software soon. Recently, we reported that Rivian lost their EV tax credit qualifications. Now though, after submitting updated documentation, both the R1T and R1S do qualify for a portion of the credit. Since Rivian assembles and manufactures its EVs at their Normal, Illinois factory, a spokesperson from the company announced that they were expecting their eligibility to be reflected on the IRS website pending future updates. The very next day, the IRS updated their website, and now both vehicles qualify for a $3,750 credit. That is, of course, if your vehicle configuration is below the MSRP cap, which many Rivians are not. Reportedly, their goal is to fully qualify for the $7,500 tax credit later this year. Again, it would be for cars under that price cap. VW has also been made eligible, and now they're the first non-US automaker to qualify for the full $7,500 tax credit. They were also just waiting on the proper documentation so that the ID4 would qualify. You can now get the standard range for as low as $31,495 after the credit is applied. Over at Ford, they just teased a new EV model, but it looks like it won't be coming to the US. It'll be an electric Ford Puma, first coming to Australia in 2024. Ford announced the new car on Twitter, and CEO Jim Farley responded saying, quote, the all-electric Ford Puma is headed to Australia. This will be our 4th EV launching down under before the end of 2024. Australian customers will love it. The Puma is a small crossover SUV, a little larger than the EcoSport sold in North America. This is what the gas-powered Puma looks like, so the EV will likely follow its design language. The current Puma is offered in Europe and China as well as Australia, so it would make sense if the EV version is eventually made available there too. This car is typically priced just below the slightly larger Escape SUV, so the new one could be Ford's first affordable EV. We'll have to see how Ford prices it out though. That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see the latest Model 3 leaks, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.